Welcome to Make America Healthy Again. Join Dr. Charles Antinori and friends as they share solutions, tips, and insights that only doctors know for creating better health. Here's Dr. Antinori.
Today in the Make America Great podcast, I have my brother, Paul Antinori, an attorney, and we're going to talk about drug development and things like that. Paul's going to start off going over his credentialing, his education and credentialing.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
This is Paul Antinori. I'm a lawyer. I started out in law firms. Started out like Charlie, Jesuit education, high school and college, and then went to the University of Virginia to law school. After law school, I started working at major national firms, international firms in New York, right, among others, Skadden.
Yeah.
Then I came over to New Jersey and worked at big firms in New Jersey, eventually becoming a partner in one of the firms in New Jersey. I was early in my career a litigation attorney, kind of figured out after a while that I didn't like that, and that I said the only people making money in litigation were the lawyers. Mm-hmm. Well, years later, when I was a partner in a law firm, I was like, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I really found I enjoyed doing deals better because everyone was getting something out of it.
Yeah.
And it felt much more constructive. So it took me a couple of years, actually, to transition from being a litigator, because I was good at it, to being a deal guy. I eventually made partner as a corporate lawyer in a big firm in New Jersey and did all kinds of deals, financings, a lot of work. The firm had a big bankruptcy practice, so I did a lot of work in bankruptcy deals. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
There's no rules. The only rule is what you can get away with.
Right.
Yeah. And it's
like the Thunderdome.
It made a lot of fun for the lawyers, you know. But what I didn't like about it was I had spent a lot of time representing lenders, and when you in bankruptcy, the lenders are the ones that are generally getting hosed. Yeah. So from that point of view, it was a little more difficult, but mostly it was fun. It's fun for the lawyers, and the lawyers make a lot of money on it. But eventually, I saw that even as a partner at a major law firm, I saw, this was the late 80s, that the business of the practice of law had changed, and that even the senior partners were having to what you call go after the numbers.
Right,
so origination, and making sure that they held up their end, because what was happening was some guys were not. And they were being de-equitized, meaning now you're no longer an equity partner. You're now working for a salary. And I saw that happening, and I was not a big business generator myself. I was young, but I could see that I was not a big business generator like some of the guys were. And it was just me and Debbie, my wife, and we had no kids. And I said, and it was the late 80s, when you may remember, it was late 90s. Lots of people were making a lot of money because it was the start of the high-tech boom.
.com.
And I saw a lot of lawyers go work for companies,
right.
And they're making, all you hear about these lawyers making millions of dollars.
It's funny, during that period of time, the doctors are going through the same thing. My practice went through the same thing. Like I was telling you just before we started, that the money was drying up, and people were pointing at people. You think you're not busy enough. Senior partners used to let the younger guys operate.
Right
now, the younger guys are like, your senior guys they're goofing off.
Exactly.
It's the same exact sequence. And talking about the .com thing, during that same period of time where we were having this horrible time, I every time I went to a wedding, I'd end up sitting at a table with somebody whose kid just got out of college and didn't get a job, but signed up with somebody and was now worth $6 million.
Right.
The company,
right.
Amazon or something like.
I saw that happening.
Yeah.
I saw it was happening for lawyers even.
Yeah.
I knew a couple of lawyers, and I said to Deb, because law firm, law firm, that was hard. You have lots of hours being a partner in a law firm. Very stressful, very demanding.
Same thing with surgery.
Yeah. And I thought I might be able to do something, to do okay, maybe make a lot of money, but probably work less.
Yeah.
And that if it was just me and Debbie, we should be fine. I remember saying, if we can't live on $150,000 a year, there's a problem.
Right, yeah.
As if we could, but because it turns out we couldn't. but I got it was a very strange thing. I left the partnership in a law firm and went to work for what was called a
medicines company, wasn't it?
No. First, I went to this place called PCN. It was a physician practice management software.
Right.
And they discovered, right before I started, I was telling you, they discovered fraud in their financials.
Yeah.
And they were a public company,
Yeah.
NASDAQ listed company. So here I am going in as general counsel in a NASDAQ listed company, and they find fraud in the financials.
Yeah.
That, and this is where I was supposed to be making $150,000.
Yeah.
That turned out to be an incredible opportunity, incredible learning experience, because the board of directors had some heavy hitters on it, and the new auditors that came in were looking to me as like the white knight, because I was clean. I was coming in. I was clean.
Right.
So it was an unbelievable. First thing they did was pay me a lot more money so that it would stay.
Here you go.
And we had a 2.5 year kind of crisis management situation, and eventually sold the company. Creditors all got paid off 100 cents on the dollar, and even the equity got a few pennies on the dollar. So equity wasn't wiped out. But that was an incredible learning experience for me.
I don't remember this at all.
It was 2.5, 3 years of unbelievable stress, but very cool because now I was the client of big law firms rather than the lawyer.
Right.
And it was very cool, very great learning experience.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I was on my own. I was now, what am I going to do? And I didn't want to go back to a law firm.
Right.
So I did a couple things. I associated myself with a few people. It was a time where the economy was in bad shape. It was because after the .com bust.
Yeah, right. The 2000, when everything tanked.
And I did some what they call troubled asset work. I was doing that. But eventually, a friend of mine recommended I apply for a job at the medicines company.
Yeah.
And so this was another small public pharmaceutical company.
They were public?
They were public, so NASDAQ listed. And I went in as the first lawyer. It was still they had just gotten the drug approved.
Right.
So this was 2002.
Uh-huh.
They had just gotten the drug approved, Angiomax
by
Valerudin. And they were just starting to sell it in the U.S.
Yeah.
We weren't yet selling ex-U.S.
Right.
And I came in as an in-house lawyer. I stayed there for 12 years. I was there for 12 years. Through an unbelievable experience. And again, I'll transition. This is where I talk about enjoying the combination of the law and the science.
Right.
Because the main product was Angiomax.
Right.
A blood thinner.
An orphan drug. Somebody else had developed it. And
it was developed by Biogen.
Yeah.
And we licensed, but they didn't want to develop it because the cost of goods, the cost of manufacture was too high.
Uh-huh.
One of this brilliant scientist who I'm still working with, a PhD from Oxford type guy, figured out how to reduce the cost of goods and be able to make it on a basis where you could make some money on it.
Right.
But also, over the years we acquired other drugs that we were developing at the medicines company, and like I say, the idea of having to learn at least enough as the lawyer, enough about the science that you could understand it. And the business of it all, from the question of how you go about getting a drug approved to the manufacturing issues, the quality issues, to the issues of running a company, human resources issues, financing issues. Right. And again, public companies, so board of directors, heavy hitters on the board, and having to make disclosures whether you want to or not. At times it's hard to know what you need to say.
Right.
We always said, being a general counsel, being a public company, is tough in a way because you have these disclosure requirements, and often you don't know exactly what you ought to be saying.
Right.
On the timetable that you've got to be saying something. So that makes it difficult.
Right.
But the big thing that happened at the medicines company for me was this drug Angiomax by Valerudin had a patent problem. Mm-hmm. And there's a law in the U.S. when you get a drug approved because when you have a patent on the drug, you want to.
Did Biogen have a patent on it, or
Biogen had the patent? Okay. Medicines company licensed the patent from Biogen.
I see. Okay.
So we were paying royalties to Biogen.
Okay.
Standard stuff, right? But when the drug got approved, and medicines company was the one that got it approved. You have to make a filing the law allowed you to get back some of the time that you lost of your patent that you lost while you were developing the drug.
Right.
Because you can't bring it to market until you get the approval.
Right.
So there was a bit of a mix-up in making that filing. And we spent the better part of 8 years going down to Washington to try to get that mix-up fixed.
So you would have a longer the patent.
Yeah, so that we would
control it for longer.
We were able to get the patent term extended, so that we'd have exclusive rights, so that a generic could not come in.
Right.
That's the idea. That's what I should be getting at. We spent 8 years or so getting it with me going to.
But it was getting used during this time already.
It was getting used, and that was the thing.
Yeah.
Because it was successful.
Yeah.
So, and this is jumping ahead a little bit. The interesting thing about it in the pharmaceutical business is the more successful a drug is, the more likely there will be a patent challenge. Because one of the interesting things is that a number of the things that you need to say in the course of getting your drug approved are things that will come back to haunt you later when you need to defend the patent on the drug.
Right.
And it's just, it's just the way that it happens because there's so much money at stake.
Yeah. Let me throw in so the audience hears that it just so happened that this drug partially put me out of the cardiac surgery business too. Because this drug, as people know, the cardiac surgery, we for most of the career, 85% of the operations we did were coronary bypasses. And then what came along was the stents.
Stenting.
And the first stents stunk. So we got even busier actually after that because they would cath people that they wouldn't cath.
Yeah.
Because they might be stenting, and then they'd stent them more, and the stent wouldn't work.
Right.
It was a pain in the neck. We had to go through all sorts of things for the angioplasty. You'd have to wait to start a case until they did the angioplasty. Then they do the angioplasty. Then we start a case, and then it would fail, and then we'd have to go and do that case at night anyway. But. What I was saying, when the Angiomax came over, the drug-eluting stents and the Angiomax sort of came along around the same time. The drug-eluting stents had the ranitidine or whatever, rapamycin. There was two, rapamycin, and I forget the other one.
I don't know.
The drugs that they elude, they put them right into the metal.
Into the metal of the mesh. The
mesh. And it comes off over a 6-month period, and it stopped this post-stenotic dilatation problem, So all of a sudden, everybody was getting angioplasties and stents, and
cardiac
surgery took a tremendous drop. Like I said, it was 85% was cardiac surgery. It didn't go down to zero, but it got dropped by more than 50%. Put it that way, and also reimbursement was dropping during that time, and reporting was increasing. People were looking over your shoulder.
And you were saying so the people you'd get for bypass surgery were
older
sicker.
And sicker. Because they had stents, they had been stented a few times before they got to the bypass surgery. So, everything was heading in the wrong direction. But Angiomax became the drug of choice for the process. It's an anticoagulant. And the cardiologists, they love anticoagulation. Clots are their enemy. They don't care if people bleed. Somebody else takes care of that.
Right. The funny thing is, I'll tell you, and we'll get back to the story. One of our nephews from next door is going out with a young woman who works in a cardiac cath lab and uses bivalirudin all the time.
Still using it.
Wow. Well, now it's generic, so it's cheap to use. But I skipped ahead. I wanted to talk about the drug development process a little bit. Again, just basically, because again, it's so complex and there's so much nuance. But the process of making application to the FDA before they'll even let you, before they'll even let you put a drug in a human, you will have tested that drug in whether it's rats or rabbits or monkeys or baboons or whatever is the closest. I think they use the word analog or something like bio. And so you've spent a couple of years and a couple $1 million already.
Right.
Now if the FDA allows you, if you haven't shown any signs of toxicity.
Right.
They'll let you put it into healthy volunteers. That's called the phase 1 study.
Right.
So you're putting it into healthy people and to make sure that nothing dramatically bad happens.
Right.
Sometimes the worst thing you'll see is
rashes or
injection site reaction, something like that. ISR. There are all kinds of statistics I was telling you about the number of drugs that start phase 1 and eventually get approved. It's way less than 1%.
Yeah.
The number of years it takes, 5, 6, 7, 10 years.
Yeah.
And the amount of money. $300 million, $500 million, $1 billion
to develop a drug.
To get it through to phase 3 and actually approved in the U.S.
Right.
And that's why, to cycle back, that's why there's this law, it's called the Hatch-Waxman law, that allows you to recover a portion of the time you spend doing all that.
Right.
It allows you to
recover. Because what is the time from the initial patent? 7 years from the initial patent?
No, it used to be 17 years from the time a patent was granted.
Yeah.
That changed back in 2010 or 11. That changed because it changed to what the rest of the world is, which is 20 years from when you file your patent application.
Okay.
So, but then you've got this law that allows you to recover some of that 20 years, some of the period that you spend getting the drug approved.
Right.
And once it's complex because you've got to go, like, for instance, you get it approved in the U.S. for the U.S.
Yeah, right.
You want to go to Europe, you've got to get approved in Europe.
Right.
And now that the U.K. is no longer part of Europe, or
you got to go
EU,
separately there.
You got to go separately there.
Yeah. I remember that was our trip to Italy. You were.
That's right. I was over there doing that.
Yeah.
Now China, Japan.
Right. Right.
In those countries, at least from what I've seen, you do a lot of smaller companies like I've always worked at. Usually partner with somebody in China.
Which China's going to steal your technology,
and
basically.
that's a risk. The company I work for now, the drug is manufactured by a Chinese company, not in China, but it's something we talk about at every board meeting.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, you go through all that process, and then there's so much risk involved.
Yeah.
Even in the clinical trial process, there's risk. Someone might mess up the trial.
Right.
Someone might mess up the trial study report.
Right.
Mistakes get made in the report.
Right.
And then you give that report to the regulators, and you find out later that there was a mistake. Guess what? The regulator's going to want to know more than just that it was a mistake. They're going to want to know what happened.
Yeah.
So that's a delay. And then you find out that you're working on something you think is promising, and you think you've got the field to yourself. And you find out that someone else is also developing something for the same condition. So now you got to worry about actually competition.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always come back to this sort of quandary that the development of medicine and the marketing of medicine is in our world is a capitalist endeavor.
Right. Yeah.
So you take tremendous risk.
Yeah.
You need to get tremendous reward.
You need tremendous reward. Right.
It's unfortunate because it means that these pharmaceutical companies make money. I mean, I'm the beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
But it also means that good drugs get developed, and then over time, that's the other part of this law that I was mentioning that gets you part of the patent term back. Once that's over, then generics are allowed to come in.
Right.
And what often happens, and I was heavily involved in this, if your patent is attacked, you end up making deals with the generics because you don't want to go through the risk of a trial. Because trials are risky.
Right.
The litigators will tell you there's no trial you can't lose.
Yeah,
you don't have a 20% chance of losing.
Yeah.
And there's no trial you don't have a 20% chance of winning.
Right.
So, you get induced to settle. And when it's an attack by a generic company on your, Angiomax, Bivalirudin was the heart and soul of the company.
Right.
It was the only one that was truly successful.
Yeah.
Until they developed a different drug and then sold that. The whole company got sold.
Right.
But when you're faced with those, as they say, like an existential bet the company litigation.
Right.
There's a significant inducement to settle.
Right. Yeah.
So you make deals, and then you got to deal with the FTC, which comes in and says, "I don't like that deal."
Yeah.
You shouldn't be making that deal. It's anti-competitive, and it's all legit stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
And
that's why these drugs are expensive and I think how is it? Are we the American market paying this back? I mean, they won't be able to sell these drugs for the prices that they need in some of these other markets. I think
that's right. Other markets will, and it's one of the things I think I either said to you or to somebody. I've been in this business, in the pharmaceutical business in the U.S. for 20 years now, more than 20 years. More than 20 years. I started in 2002, right?
Instead of 20, yeah.
I don't know the answer why it is that we do pay more in the U.S.
Yeah.
I
think it's because we can.
You're probably right.
And like you say, they got to make this money back somewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
But when you go to the EU, all of a sudden there are price controls. You go to
Well, I know the other thing too is like from medical reading. In Europe, Britain, I read one book by a neurosurgeon over in Britain. Was it Do No Harm? I think is the name of the book. Mm-hmm. But they have a board, and unless you can prove that the drug is a hell of a lot better, than a drug that's already out there.
Yes, right.
They won't allow your drug. I mean, they'll be using Indoral. I
think they call it NICE.
NICE. The name of the panel is NICE. That's right. Yeah. It stands for something.
I think the regulators MHRA, but there's the NICE panel because it's interesting when we do deals, licensing deals, and sometimes you'll have a milestone payment due upon an approval, and so you got to be careful because ex-US, outside the US, you'll say upon all approvals, including pricing approval, because you might get an approval to sell in a country, but you then have to make another approval and get pricing approval, another application and get a pricing. So you don't want to start having milestones hit before you have that pricing approval because you can't go to the market yet.
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting. I mean, how it all fits together, the risk, the science, the medicine. I've been lucky in the companies I've worked for. They've always been sort of small companies that really are trying to fix something, something that doesn't have a fix.
Right, yeah.
I think in a lot of the bigger companies, they're all doing good stuff too.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff they do is in where there already is a fix, and it's just like they call a Me Too drug.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's as interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how the big companies ever do it. I mean, they're all over the place. Stuff that in my company we make a decision. There's like 5 of us, 3 of us that need to get involved in making decisions. So we make them in days, rather than in the big firms it takes weeks.
Months maybe. Yeah.
And working in different time zones. I don't know how the big firms really do it. So as I started to say before we started, everything I've said, there's tremendous complexity to.
Right.
And so all of the principles I've laid out, I think the principles apply.
Yeah.
But when you want to get into any particular situation, the specifics matter.
Yeah.
And, you can't, even for me, I mean, I have 30, 40 different lawyers that I use outside counsel around the world. And I don't mess around because you can't mess around. You can't say like, oh, I think this is right.
Right.
You got to know what's right. And so I was looking at bills from my one law firm yesterday. In 1 month, I had $75,000 worth of bills.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a heavy month.
Right, yeah.
But that's...
Yeah, and that all goes into the cost of the drug.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Paulie, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.